Hello, I'm Mark, and welcome to the final part of my Unreal Engine tutorial series on how to set up network physics movement using Unreal Engine's Iris plugin. So this is part 4 of our 4-part series, and in this video we'll go ahead and take our component that we've created in part 3 and tie it into a blueprint actor so that we can then go ahead and move that thing around on a map using Iris's physics simulation. So, as always, we've got a lot of ground to cover today, so let's get started. So first things first, we're going to need a map. So when we created this, we created a blank solution. We have a default map here, but I'm just going to go ahead and create a new map for this. So I'm going to come under File, go to New Map. When dealing with physics movement, the bigger the map, the better, so we will use an open world. And hit create, and I'm just going to hit save. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to save this map, and I'm just going to call this, we'll just call it test map, real original, and I'm just going to hit save. So now that we got our map, let's go ahead and once it's finished saving, we can then let's get in there and do a little bit of configuration on the map. So let's just do this. So Unreal Engine, this is just a default map. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in some player start locations. So to do that, again, I'm just going to come under place actors, and we should be able to see them right here under basics, player start. So I'm just going to go drag one there. And because I want to do networked as well, I'm just going to grab a second one and we'll just do that there. So these are two start locations. So what Unreal Engine will do is it will pick one of those to spawn under, or if you have multiple clients, it'll start to try and distribute the locations around either one of those. All right, so I'm going to hit save. We've got some start locations on the map. So next up, we're going to need some input controls. So let's go ahead and set that up. So to do that, I'm going to right click and create a new folder called input. And under input, I'm going to create another folder called actions. All right. And so let's go ahead and create some input actions. So we're going to need 3. I'm going to need a throttle, brake, and steering. At a bare minimum. So under the actions, I'm going to right click and we'll come down to input, go to input action. This one's going to be IA. I'm going to call this IA throttle, and I'm just going to open this up and let's move this on screen. So because so we're going to be using analog. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this up to a 1-axis. So digital is Boolean, and that's going to be either on or off. This is analog, so this will get us any value between -1 and 1 on 1 axis. 2D is usually when you're if you have a controller that can your X and the Y. 3D vector is an X, Y, Z. This would be if you've got some kind of like motion sensor peripheral that you're wearing that can then take all 3 axes. This is usually, these 2 are usually actually the first 3 are usually controllers. So we're just going to use 1D, and that's all we're going to do there. And I'm going to hit save. I'm going to come to the content drawer, and I'm actually going to duplicate this 2 more times since we're going to need these for analog. This will be brake. And I will dupe this again. Where is it? Duplicate, and this one will be steering. All right, so I'm going to hit save or save all. All right, so there are the actions. Next up, we will need a context. So again, going to come to input mapping context. So input mapping context IMC, and this will be default. So there's our context. I'm going to open this up, And then here, let's go ahead and create our maps. So first one is, okay, so let's see, this will be default. So I'm going to use a default profile name. Actually, you know what? This is a profile override, so I'm going to delete that. I'm just going to go straight under default keys. So I'm going to hit the plus key, throttle. I'm going to hit the plus key again. Brake. I'm going to hit the plus key again one more time and go to steering. All right, so for this, I'm going to use a controller. So I'm going to switch over to my controller, make sure it's turned on. And so for throttle, I am going to use the right analog stick. For brake, I'm going to use the left analog stick. And for the steering, so all I need to do, the nice thing about this is I can just click on the key and then just use your stick. So that's going to be the left gamepad. So that's going to be my steering. All right, so now that that's done, we've got our mappings, we've got our mapping context, and we've got all three of our controls. I'm just going to go and make sure that these are set to 1D. Yep, that looks like it's 1D, and brake is 1D. Yep, okay, good. So there's our mapping context, there is our throttle. All right, so next up, let's go ahead. I'm just going to put my controller down. And let's go ahead and build out our little object that we're going to move. So let's create the roller object. So to do that, I'm just going to come up to content. I'm just going to keep this in line. And we're just going to go to blueprint class. I'm going to pick pawn so that we can control it. pp underscore, call it bp rollerball. And we will open this guy up. All right, so once we have this, let's go ahead and set this up. I'm going to say add, and we will add a sphere. So there's our ball. And so on the ball, I'm just going to come down and we're going to just configure this to simulate physics. So if we're going to be using physics movement, we want to simulate physics. And by simulating physics, it should also turn this into a physics actor. But you can also turn it into a vehicle too. So once you click on this, it will set this. So if you need to change it, you can then come down on the collision and change it. I'm just going to keep it as a physics actor for this demo. And next, because this is going to be a physics solution, we need to move this into the root component. So we're just going to move this up. So this is the actor that we want, so it's not a part of a more complex actor. All right, so now we need to attach a camera. So I'm saying add spring arm. So there's the spring arm for our camera, and I am going to set this. I'm not going to put any angle on this. That way we can kind of see it on the up and down. If you want to change it, you can. But we are going to make it out to 1,000 on the length. So we'll set that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add a camera to the spring arm. And we'll just use a standard generic camera. So there's our camera, there's a relationship to the spring arm, and there's our sphere. Again, just keeping it quick and simple. All right, now that we've set this up, let's go back up to the actor, or the, up to the root actor, and let's go add our components. So I'm going to hit add. I'm going to type in primer physics movement. So here is our component, and we just add that in right there. And under this, we don't need to do anything. yeah, we don't need to do anything on here. This is just a component that's just going to broker the communication between the physics thread and the game thread. All right, so now that we've got that done, let's come over to the event graph. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this from the other solution since it's a little big. But first off, we need to get a controller in here. So to do that, let's just open this up, make it big. So to do that, in 5.7 and 5.8, it has this event called the receive controller change. So whenever the controller is changed, so this could be useful if you're doing pawn possession in games where you may want to move from a character to a vehicle and back again. What this does is it will then register the event that the controller is changing, right? And as soon as the controller changes, we'll get the new controller. You can put a copy of the old controller, which could technically be the AI, and store it in old, so that when you change back, you can put that back in again, right? So that's the old controller. This is the new controller. We're going to cast to the player controller. So this is just the generic player controller. We're not doing anything on it. We don't need a custom controller here. On that, we have this enhanced input player subsystem. And from there, first we're going to validate the subsystem, and then once we validate it, we will then set the mapping context to IMC. So I've found when working with networking, you want to put a validation there, because the first time through, this subsystem may not be valid. The controller might be there, but this might not be valid yet. But then it will then do a second pass through, and then it will become valid. So if you don't want that error on the first pass through, then just put that in there just to double check to make sure it's valid before we do that. Again, this is on standalone. You won't see that, so you don't need it. But on networking, it's just something that I kind of noticed when I was doing it. So I just always put that there now. All right, next up is going to be, we don't need begin play or overlap, so I'm just going to take that out of the mix. Event tick, I'm just going to move that up there for now. So let's go ahead and get the inputs wired up. So I'm just going to right click and say IA underscore throttle. So I'm just going to add that. I'm just going to say IA underscore brake. We're just going to grab that one. And I'm just going to then say IA steering, and we'll just grab that. So these are our input. These are the inputs I'm going to use in this demo. And in the component, we have defined those. So I'm just going to come over here. And now I'm just going to say set throttle input. I'm going to go grab that guy and just hook that there and hook this into there. So now we can get that input into there. And we'll then, I'm just going to drag and drop and do the same thing for brake. And then the same thing, drag and drop for steering. Actually, this is set your input. Yeah, that's right. All right, so we have all that. I'm just going to compile and save. So that's our input controls. That's getting the data in. And then we also have getting data off the thread. So for that, we're going to output it through the tick. So again, let's go grab our primer. And we'll say get current simulation. Get current simulation output. There it is, and on that simulation we have a struct, so let's go ahead and break that struct. I'm going to need a little bit more room, so let's just move this further. Actually, no, we'll keep that up there, and we'll just move the tick stuff there. All right, off here, just gonna move this up. Actually, we'll move this down a little bit. So for the output, we're just outputting 3 events. So first off, I'm gonna do a branch. And I'm just going to say hit. So as long as we're hitting something, we should be then we're going to print the output lines. And to do that, I'm just going to say draw debug line. So again, this is development only. So if you needed to do debugging in your game and blueprints, you can use this. For color, let's go. I like a green color. Just my opinion or my preference. And we'll do 1, and we'll make it a nice big thick line. All right, so, and then we'll just keep the depth priority to the world. All right, so cool. So that's all we need to do there. So on tick, we'll be just grabbing whatever's in simulation output and outputting it this way. So again, if you need to do debugging on the physics for like line tracing on the physics thread, you just need to make sure that you're passing that back in the outputs and doing it here. You can't do it on the physics thread, otherwise Unreal Engine will crash. All right, so that's everything here. We've got all that set up. So the only other thing we need to do now is I need to get a game mode so that we can tie this into the game mode. So to do that, I'm going to come back to the content drawer. I'm going to right click, go to blueprints, and down here we have game mode base. I'm just going to click that. Game mode base, and we can open this up. And this is really just a large data file. There really shouldn't be any default scene component, anything in here. But what we want is, let's see. No, on here. So what I want to do is I'm going to set the default pawn to be the rollable pawn. So this is our class here. I'm going to set this class. And I'm doing this because in the map, I want to set the game mode, and it should just bring all of that in for me. All right, so game mode, rollable, that. And then I'm going to come back to our new map. I'm going to go to world settings, and then in game mode override. So there's 2 places where we can set a game mode if you're new to Unreal Engine. One is in the map itself, so you can actually say that certain maps can have certain game modes if you need to customize that game mode experience. The other place, if you need a default game mode across all your maps, though, what you can do is you can come under edit, go to project settings, and you can come to maps and modes, and you can set the game mode here, and then this will be used across all your maps, right? But again, you can still override it again here. So again, that's why this is the override. So you can have multiple game modes. You could have your default game mode, which could be custom, and then you could even go into then default game modes for specific maps if you needed to change the game mode there for specific maps. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and save that. We've got our setup there. So let's go ahead and give this a test and see if we can start rolling across this desert landscape. All right, we're in. We're on Physics 6, so let's try and give this a shot. Oops. Okay, we got a little bit of an issue here. So the lines being drawn, and the thing is being drawn. I'm just going to stop this before it gets too motion sick. Let's go ahead and just fix that real quick. So what happened is that we're spinning the ball, but the camera's rotating around the ball. So fix that. I'm just going to say use pawn controller rotation, and I'm just going to turn that to true. So before it was false, and this is on the spring arm. So we're going to go to spring arm, turn this on, and that should then fix this. And hopefully if everything's done right and we don't have any other Oopsies, we should start rolling. And there we are. We're now rolling on our axes, and it is now drawing a line. And then if I get this going really fast, let's see if we can get it going and hitting a bump. Yeah, we'll take it over here. Oh, there you go. So it's turning off as soon as it leaves the as soon as the line trace leaves the ground, and then it will start to draw lines again as it races in. All right, so now we've set that up, we know it's working. So let's go ahead and configure it for running in a client server configuration. So to do that, I'm just going to bring this back over. And we're going to go ahead and come up to the class itself. And we're going to come down to replication. So what we need to do here is we are going to set the physics replication mode. I'm going to set it to resimulate since we have it configured for resimulation. So we can set that to resimulation. And then under replicate movement, so for physics, so if you're for character movement, you could get away with using round whole numbers and byte, but for physics it really does need a lot of precision when it comes to quantization level for velocity and rotation. So we're going to set this to 2, and we're going to set this to short, and this will help to smooth out. Again, it's part of the smoothing process when moving the vehicle in a client server configuration. So that is set. We don't need rendering, we don't need actor, collision input, physics. All right, so then the only other thing that we now need to do is we need to go turn the physics networking on. So to do that, we're going to come under edit, we're going to come to project settings, and again, just like in the legacy system, we're going to come down to physics, and in here under physics prediction, we're going to turn on enable prediction, and I'm also going to turn on capture history. And then under frame rate, we're going to turn substepping on, substepping async on, and I'm also going to turn on, for good measure, tick physics sync as well. So once this is the one which is going to turn on the network replication in the class. In our component. So once we flip this switch, we don't need to worry about our component. Our component will respect whatever we set here for replication. All right, that's done. So I'm just going to save this. I'm just going to go close it. And let's just reopen it. And if networking is on, we should see two little spheres hovering over here. May not see it right away. You may need to close the editor and reopen, but that's where you know when you start seeing those two spheres, you should know networking is on. It should look like something like this. This is kind of like, this is my demo. So once you see this happening there, now again, you may need to close the solution and reopen it, but networking is turned on as soon as you flip that switch. All right, so that's there. I'm going to hit save, and I'm just going to go close this real quick. And let's go ahead and set the browser up for networking. So I'm going to go to clients, and we're going to go to play as clients. So client 1 and client 2 are going to be here, and we should see those both those clients come up for networking. So let's go ahead and fire this up. All right, so as you can see here, I've got 2 clients. I'm just going to click on the small screen, and all right, it's moving, but it's not moving. So we've still got a little bit of an issue on setting up the clients. So let's go debug that real quick. Okay, so if you're having an issue getting the networking to work after you've done all the settings, apparently Unreal Engine, especially in 5.8, has some really wicked caching. So what you may need to do is actually close the entire solution and reopen it and reopen the map. Once that is done, you should see your rollerball with 2 little spheres. Okay, once that is done, all the settings are set up and you should be good to go. Again, it's just something that's really weird. As I've noticed, sometimes the editor will kind of cache or desync. So again, open it up. If you start to see that this is not here, you can go into C++ and just rebuild everything. I rebuild it, close the editor, rebuild again, just to make sure that it's blown any of the editor's cache, right? And once it's done, but everything here, is working. So again, if it doesn't work for you straight out the box, it's 9 times out of 10 it's going to be an Unreal Engine caching issue, either between caching the DLLs that you're creating in C++, or it's caching a version of the blueprint that it shouldn't be caching and it hasn't just expired it. So again, I had a little issue, it wasn't moving, looking a little spongy. So if that happens, close the editor, recompile in Visual Studio, reopen, and get back to your map. And open up the blueprint. You should then see these little 2 spheres, which says replication is turned on. And with all the caching blown out and it's starting from scratch again, we should be able to come in here. So I've just set this to a single client. So player's number and single client for this one. We could go ahead and move this up to 2 clients, and hopefully everything will spawn in. All right, so we have that spawned. I've got client number 2 here. And as you can see, now our rollerball is rolling across the desert. And maybe at some point we will pass the other sphere, or maybe not. Actually, I think we need to go the other way. A little hard to figure out where we're going. One's facing one way, the other one's facing the other way. But there it is, running on the second client and replicating. All right, so that should be it. So just a couple of little technical things you might have, especially after you've built the component. Just make sure you do when it comes to just clearing out Unreal Engine's cache. But that is it. So that should conclude this tutorial series. Once again, if you like what I'm doing, feel free to like and share my videos, as well as subscribe to my channel. It really helps out, and I greatly appreciate that. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will try and get back to you as quickly as I can to answer them. And yeah, and I will catch you again in the next video. Cheers, and have a great and wonderful day.